Portugal was supposed to be the dream. Sunshine, beaches, cheap wine, and a laid-back lifestyle that made everyone jealous on Instagram. But here's what nobody's posting about. Nearly a third of young Portuguese people have already left the country, and the ones still there are desperately trying to figure out how to escape. We're not talking about a few people chasing better opportunities. We're talking about an entire generation being forced out of their own country because staying has become impossible. The housing crisis is so bad that people are choosing between paying rent and eating. Salaries are so low that even university graduates are making barely more than minimum wage. And the government? They're scrambling to fix a problem that's been building for over a decade. In the next few minutes, you're going to find out exactly why Portugal has become unlivable for its own citizens, what's causing this mass exodus, and whether anything can actually fix this disaster before it's too late. And if you really want to know what's it all about, you have to stay till the end of the video. Let me give you some numbers that'll blow your mind. Around 30% of people born in Portugal between the ages of 15 and 39 have already emigrated. That's more than 850,000 young people. Think about that for a second. 3 out of every 10 young Portuguese people looked at their future in Portugal and said, "Nope, I'm out." Portugal has the highest emigration rate in Europe and one of the highest in the world. This isn't just people leaving for adventure or experience. This is a full-blown brain drain where the country's most educated, most talented, and most productive people are running for the exit. Where are they going? Mostly to other European countries. About 21% migrate to Switzerland, 19% to Spain, and 12% to France. These aren't random choices. They're going to places where they can actually afford to live and where their salaries match the cost of living. Here's the really scary part. Almost a third of Portuguese women of fertile age live abroad, which will have a brutal effect on national fertility and the labor market. So, what's driving everyone away? Let's start with the elephant in the room: housing. Portugal's housing crisis isn't just bad, it's catastrophic. Between 2012 and 2021, housing costs in Portugal soared by 78%, more than double the EU average. But wait, it gets worse. In 2024 alone, average house prices rose by over 9%, and at the beginning of 2025, Portugal recorded the highest year-on-year increase in housing prices across the entire European Union, with a rise of 16.3%. We're talking about rent prices that have basically doubled in a few years. Young people are returning to their parents' homes. People are living on the streets, living in tents all over the city, and 2024 was already worse than 2023. This isn't an exaggeration. Drive through Lisbon or Porto, and you'll see tent cities that didn't exist 5 years ago. For those who do manage to rent, the situation is absurd. Landlords now routinely demand 1-year upfront payments or guarantors, practices that remain legal but were rare a decade ago. Imagine trying to come up with 12 months of rent in advance when you're making minimum wage. Here's where it gets even worse. Portugal has some of the lowest salaries in Western Europe combined with some of the highest housing costs. It's the worst possible combination. As of January 1st, 2025, the national minimum wage in Portugal is 870 euros per month. That's roughly 950 US dollars. Portugal has one of the lowest minimum wages in the EU and is regarded as one of the poorest countries in Western Europe. But minimum wage isn't even the real problem. The real problem is that even educated professionals with degrees are barely making more. The average gross monthly salary in Portugal was 1,741 euros as of 2025. That's about 1,900 US dollars per month before taxes. Let's do some quick math. If you're making the average salary of 1,741 euros, and your rent is 1,000 euros in Lisbon, which is pretty standard now, you've got 741 euros left for everything else: food, transportation, utilities, healthcare, maybe trying to save something for the future. It doesn't work. Many recent graduates earn little more than the minimum wage. You can spend 4 years getting a university degree and end up making 900 euros a month. Meanwhile, you could go to Switzerland or Germany with the same degree and triple or quadruple your salary instantly. The salary situation is so bad that people are working multiple jobs just to survive. Young workers are increasingly holding down 2 jobs or leaving the country altogether in search of a more affordable life. So how did Portugal end up in this mess? The roots go back to the 2008 financial crisis. After the financial crisis hit Portugal hard around 2011, the state was close to bankruptcy and was forced into a fire sale of public assets. Portugal needed money desperately, so they basically sold off everything they could and invited foreign investment with open arms. The government came up with schemes like the Golden Visa program and tax breaks for wealthy foreigners. Cities like Lisbon incentivized long-term stays, making it easy for digital nomads and other expats to live, rent, and buy property. The idea was to attract wealthy people who would spend money and boost the economy. And it worked, sort of. Foreign money poured in. The number of overnight stays in Lisbon reached more than 11 million in 2019, about 20 times its resident population. Tourism exploded. Property investors from all over the world started buying up apartments to turn into Airbnbs. But here's what nobody planned for. All that foreign investment drove up housing prices to insane levels, while Portuguese salaries stayed flat. Housing prices became completely decontextualized from Portuguese income. You had properties priced for wealthy foreigners that regular Portuguese people had zero chance of affording. Since visa changes in 2012, young renters found themselves priced out by digital nomads, remote working foreigners benefiting from lower taxes. Imagine being a Portuguese nurse or teacher and competing for apartments against German software engineers making 3 times your salary. The government eventually realized they'd screwed up. Portugal scrapped its non-habitual residency tax scheme in 2024, which had allowed foreigners to reside in the country for up to 10 years paying a flat income tax of 20%. But by then, the damage was done. Housing prices had already skyrocketed beyond what regular people could afford. There's another huge issue. Portugal isn't building enough houses. Like, not even close. Independent researchers estimate that Portugal is missing about 150,000 dwellings just to cover today's demand. The government promises to build housing, but municipal data show that in 2024 only 21,400 residential permits were issued nationwide. That's nowhere near the 40,000 homes per year that experts say are needed. Why aren't they building more? Bureaucracy, lack of skilled labor, rising construction costs, and local governments that don't have the tools or money to move faster. Lisbon City Hall planned to release 35 plots of public land for build-to-rent schemes, yet zoning changes and neighborhood appeals slowed groundbreaking. Meanwhile, you've got thousands of empty properties just sitting there. According to data, there are around 720,000 homes still vacant in Portugal. That's not a typo. 750,000 empty homes while people are living in tents and their parents' basements. Why are they empty? Because the tax burden associated with selling properties makes it more economically rational for owners to leave them empty than to release them into the market. The system is so backwards that people would rather let property rot than deal with the hassle and cost of selling or renting it. So, is the government doing anything? They're trying. The question is whether it's enough. The Portuguese government announced a decade-long plan to reduce the tax burden for young people. People aged 35 and under who earn below 28,000 euros would pay no income tax in the first year of the scheme, with rates rising to 25% between the 8th and 10th years. It's called the Stay in Portugal initiative, and it's basically a desperate attempt to convince young people not to leave. The government launched a more than $2.2 billion package to build around 33,000 new homes by 2030 for low-income families. They've also introduced tax breaks for young buyers and reforms to make it easier to build on rural land. But experts are skeptical. Economists expect pricing pressure to remain intense through at least 2026, especially in coastal districts. The measures might help eventually, but they're not fixing the immediate crisis. Here's the bigger problem. Some experts believe the volume of departures will never diminish substantially because Portugal is a small economy with small horizons. No matter what policies they implement, Portugal can't compete with the salaries available in Germany, Switzerland, or the UK. The big question is whether Portugal can reverse this trend before it's too late. Some experts think it's already too late. Others believe with aggressive action, Portugal could stabilize and start bringing people back. What would real solutions look like? Building way more housing and fast. Cracking down on empty properties with heavy taxes. Raising wages across the board. Creating high-paying jobs in tech and other growing industries, making it easier to build and reducing bureaucracy, basically everything the government is trying to do, but bigger and faster. Portugal's crisis is a warning for other countries. This is what happens when you prioritize foreign investment and tourism over your own citizens' ability to live affordably. This is what happens when wages stagnate while housing costs explode. This is what happens when governments are too slow to act on obvious problems. For the young Portuguese people still in the country, the calculation is simple. stay and struggle, working multiple jobs to afford a room in a shared apartment with no realistic path to owning a home or starting a family. Or leave for another country where your salary is 3 times higher and rent is actually affordable. It's not really a choice, it's survival. Portugal has become a country where an entire generation is being priced out of their own homeland. The dream of sunshine and beaches doesn't mean much when you can't afford a place to sleep. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe and let me know in the comments if you want more videos like this. Goodbye.